Hello and welcome to the Pete Braley Show. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really do appreciate it. Before we get into anything else on today's show, I thought I might point out some of the, I guess you call them props that we have here on the set, because you might have seen these and wonder, what's up with that? So if you're new to viewing the show, thank you, welcome. Yes, this is a Miami Dolphins football helmet. The story behind this, I've told it many times before, but if you haven't heard it, in 1972, I was 11. You can do the math and see how old I am. But when you're 11, you start really, at least I did, getting into football. In 1972, the Patriots were horrible. I mean, it was like they are this year, okay? And they weren't even on TV every week because they couldn't sell out at Schaefer Stadium back in the day. The Dolphins were undefeated in 1972, the perfect season. They were on TV every week. They had flashy colors. They had gorgeous cheerleaders. There were, video shots of the beach and everything. So 11-year-old Petey fell in love with the Dolphins. And I've stayed with them through thick and thin. We've had many lean years. In fact, my kids have said to me this year with the Patriots, Dad, how'd you get used to losing all the time? And I was like, well, it just kind of happens. Anyway, that's why this is here. I do have the Red Sox hat because I am a Red Sox fan, Celtics fan, Bruins fan, just not football. Also, we have Waldorf and Statler from The Muppet Show. This is Statler, by the way, the taller one. I actually got them at Disney World, and I had them in my office at the radio station for years. I called them my morning show consultants. What'd you think of the show? I loved it. I hated it. They were my consultants. And what else? Oh, we have, of course, my first book, I'm Not Done Yet, is up here. And we have this typewriter that was actually a gift from my niece, Abby. And I really like this because, as you may know, I've kind of ventured into writing over the past couple of years. So she gave me a little typewriter, which I don't own a typewriter, by the way. Would love to get a good old, what was it, Royal Crown typewriter? That'd be cool to have one of those. So that's a little look at some of the things we have for you here on the set. Keep an eye on this because we add, subtract, and what do they call those? We hide an Easter egg. There's a story behind it. So we often do that on the set, so keep an eye on that. Coming up today, we're going to meet a local author who has a new book out. We'll get to that in just a few minutes. But first, there's a debate on TikTok. I don't know if I never thought about this before, but is there a normal way to shower? Now, you probably don't think about it much. You probably shower one of two ways, though. You either face the shower or you turn away from the shower. I didn't know people turned away, but the woman on TikTok who sparked this debate said that the way she showers, which she says is the normal way, is to turn away from the shower head. She realized this when she was talking to her mother. They were redoing the mother's bathroom, and they got into a discussion, and the mother said she faces the shower. And the young woman said, I've never heard of anything like that. Really? What about I face the shower? Unless I'm trying to rinse off my back or something. But some of the comments on TikTok were pretty interesting. Somebody said, who the heck faces the water? I do. Facing the water is unhinged, from another commenter. Someone said, I faced the water the whole time other than washing my hair. Somebody said, voluntarily getting waterboarded doesn't sound fun at all. Never thought about it that way. But my favorite was the person who said, I constantly move around like a rotisserie chicken, spending equal time on both sides. So there you go, something for the next game night. You can start a discussion or argument about what is the proper way to shower. My guest this week is a man you may know. He's a cable TV host, radio host, sports broadcaster, blogger, and local author. His latest book, The Beagle Blogger, is out now. Please welcome Pete Braley. Welcome, Pete. Thank you. It's nice to finally meet you. Now, this is your second book, right? Tell me about the first one. Well, that was called I'm Not Done Yet. I wrote that back in 2020, and what it was it was a way for me to explain the things I've been through. I mean, I've had, 6 or 8 surgeries. I've had 6 joints replaced. I ruptured my Achilles heel, And all of this is because of a metabolic disorder that I was born with. And throughout the years of my radio show, I would be away, for like 3 days, 4 days for this test, or then there was surgery and rehabbing from home. So the book gave me a chance to explain to the listeners of the radio show where I had been, if they often wondered what's going on with this guy. So it was also, I think it was motivational for some. I've heard some great feedback, and I've gotten email from people who said that the book helped them because the subtitle was Turning Disabilities into Possibilities. So, if it helped people, I'm really glad that it did. So that's what the first book was about. Now, tell me about the new book. This is completely different, right? Yeah, well, this book is, it's a look at the world through the eyes of our rascally beagle. And what happened was my daughter, Sarah, I was looking for a new idea for my website. So my daughter, Sarah, suggested that I look at the world through the eyes of Oscar and publish it once a week. She even said, why don't you do it Wednesday and call it Woof Wednesday? So I started that, and I really didn't know where it was going to go, if people would accept this idea. But soon Oscar developed his own following, and we got a lot of comments, and it really worked. So is this just the blogs republished? Well, yes and no. I mean, I did take all the blogs, and I did kind of expand on some of those. So some of the stories may be familiar to people that read the blog every week, but we also get more into the adoption, the day that Oscar was adopted, and, what is a dog thinking when that goes on, So we kind of delve into that, and also people may not realize that Oscar started out being my daughter's dog, and she was going to Salem State, and she was living in Salem, and she had Oscar, and so I get into the whole story of how he came to live with Grammy and Grampy. And there's also a story in there about how Sarah had a college party one time, and Oscar writes about that, which is amazing that he can even remember any of the details of that night. And I'll let you read that story to discover that. We also try to explain why dogs do the things they do. Like, have you ever taken your dog out for a walk, maybe last call at night, might be raining or cold, and you take him outside, you just want him to go potty, right? And he sniffs this spot, and he starts to crouch, and all of a sudden, nope, not going to go there. Let's try over here. So why is that? So we look into what makes the spot the spot. Was that difficult, trying to see things, through the eyes of a dog? Well, every now and then you have to ask yourself, would a baby say that, or would a dog say that? But then once you remind yourself that, a dog and they really can't say those things, I mean, it gives you a little bit of freedom. So do I have to be a dog owner to like really get this book? No, I don't think so. I think, anybody who has had a dog, or, someone in your family has had a dog, I think you can relate to these questions. The subtitle is Ever Wonder What Your Dog is Thinking, which I think we all have at times. I've read pieces of the book, and I can't wait to finish. Is writing something you always wanted to do? Yeah, well, I've always been a reader myself, and I've been amazed at the creative process, how things come about. The way this all came about for me was after I was let go from my radio show, Jonathan Comey and Jack Spillane reached out to me. They were at the Standard Times at the time, and they asked me if I still wanted to have a voice in the community. So I hadn't really thought about things that way, but I jumped at the opportunity. My only concern was, I had written for radio for 25 years. I hadn't really written for print. And I wasn't really sure, because writing for radio, that's the spoken word, so that's how is it heard as opposed to reading it. So I mentioned that to Jonathan, also to Jack, and they said that, that was where they came in. All I had to do was come up with the idea and write it down, and they would fine-tune it, if it needed any corrections. So really, that's how that came to be. I had a Sunday column in the newspaper, in the Standard Times. And then, the day came when they let their freelance writers go. So that was when I developed a website so that I could continue to write. It's PeteBraley.com. I haven't seen that, so I'll have to check it out. What is it again? PeteBraley.com? Yes, PeteBraley.com. I write a Sunday column about, whatever's on my mind that week or whatever's going on. And there's other things like I have a motivational post on Mondays. And you can also go into the archives and see all the columns from when I was taking care of my grandchild down in Virginia. I was down there taking care of Liam. And I wrote a column called Raising Grampy, which was a look at the world through the eyes of a 1-year-old. I'm noticing a theme here. You seem to like to write as other people. Well, yeah, I mean, it gives me a break, I guess, a little change of pace. Are there more books in the future? Are you working on that right now? Not really, no. One of the things I would like to do is to become a more disciplined writer, because I've had the pleasure of interviewing authors over the years, and they all see this is their full-time job, and they write every day. David Baldacci, he writes every day. In fact, I think he told me once he writes 8 hours a day, and I'm not at that level right now. I write when the spirit moves me, so I hope to become, more disciplined at that and write regularly. I'd like to write more, but I'm not working on anything right now. Did I hear that you're back on the radio? Yeah, what happened was a very good friend of mine, Scott Renish, he got hired to do the morning show at WSAR in Fall River. And the first day he went in, he texted me after that show, and he said that the minute he walked in and plugged in his headphones, he immediately had a flashback to the show that he and I used to do in New Bedford back in the 90s. I think it was 92, 93, 94, somewhere around there. And he said, "You've got to come over with me." So I thought, well, we'll see what happens. And then he talked about it, and he said, even if you can only do a couple of days a week, even if it's only once a week, that would be great. And, with my stroke, I can't always, work more than 3 or 4 hours without really becoming fatigued. So I went over to Fall River, and I was on the radio with him one morning. And really, we felt so comfortable. We just fit right back together. There was no interrupting each other. I got right back into the swing of things with him. So the way we've set it up is I'm going to be doing Monday and Friday with Scott on WSAR, and we'll see where it goes from there. I'll have to check that out. That's 1480 AM, WSAR? Yes, 1480 AM, or you can also you can stream it online at WSAR.com. Hey, thank you so much for being my guest today. Thank you. I'm glad we finally had a chance to get together. I'm a big fan of all of your work. Thanks, Pete. Time now for Braley's Bizarre But True. These are bizarre but evidently true stories that we find on the internet. A Vietnamese man went to the hospital recently complaining of severe headaches, and doctors diagnosed him with, wait for it, chopsticks stuck in his skull. The bizarre discovery followed 5 months of persistent headaches along with a runny nose and blurred vision. He finally noticed some kind of object in his nose, and that's when he finally decided to go to the doctor. He had a scan of his head, and doctors were shocked to see a pair of wooden chopsticks pressing up against his brain. At first, the man had no idea how chopsticks could have ended up there. But then he remembered a rowdy night, maybe with some spirits involved. He remembered a rowdy night and some chopsticks, and he realized that several months ago he started having this pain. Doctors performed surgery to remove the chopsticks, and they repaired a small hole in his brain. I don't have details of that rowdy night, but that's this week's Bizarre But True. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. January is National Soup Month, so I have a colleague of mine from New Bedford Cable Network, Dana Debarros, is joining us right now to talk about soups. Thanks for joining us, Dana.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so we do our top 5 list here, and I guess we'll start at number 5 and work our way up, right? Is that okay with you?
That's fine.
Okay, so National Soup Month, of course it's in January. That's when soups feel good, right? My number 5, and you rolled your eyes when I mentioned this before in the hallway. My number 5 is a broccoli cheddar cheese soup. I think Panera makes a fantastic one. Not a fan, huh?
Not so much, because the ones that I've had have been way too cheesy.
Okay.
You know, I really feel like I'm really putting the calories on with that one.
All right, so what would be your number 5?
Probably the French onion soup.
Ooh, French onion soup.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever had, my wife used to get that all the time, and when she would spoon up and that'd be that long string of cheese, I'd be like, that's a mess in a restaurant. But
well, again, like with anything, it depends on who makes it. You know, some people, I haven't actually had it with cheese at all. So maybe it wasn't French. I don't know.
My number 4, and I did look this up because we're talking about soups, but what about stews? What about chowders? And I know the definition of a chowder was a creamy soup. And I believe the definition of a stew is, would it be just a number of different, you know, it has so many different ingredients. So my number 4 is beef stew.
Oh,
so I'll
that's
go with
a nice choice.
Okay.
I do like a beef stew myself. And oddly enough, I didn't think of it, you know, for my list. But you're saying that's a chowder, though? Or
No, I'm saying that stews and chowders are soups. They are considered soups.
All right. So, because my number 4 would be New England clam chowder.
And it's got to be New England,
New England clam chowder.
I was at a chowder contest once, and someone entered a Manhattan chowder, which is what, tomato based,
Yeah, it's kind of reddish.
Right,
yeah.
I was like, no, this isn't chowder. This isn't chowder.
No.
All right, my number 3 is a minestrone soup, or a minestrone. I've heard it pronounced both ways, but you know, I've always wondered, when they make a minestrone soup, is it just whatever's left over in the kitchen, they throw it in? But I don't know. There is a certain combination. I do like a minestrone.
Nah, not for me.
No.
No.
Okay. All right.
I'll eat it. You know, if I'm at a buffet or a catered event, I should say, and that is the soup. Okay, I'm eating it. But my number 3, I think, would probably be my own kanja, which is a Cape Verdean chicken and rice soup.
I've never had that.
Don't ever have Campbell's chicken and rice anymore. Oh, I'm sorry, but I was supposed to say the brand name, you know, but it pales in comparison.
Really?
Oh yeah.
No, you'll have to make me some sometime.
I will have to.
All right.
Yeah.
My number 2, we're judging our top 5 favorite soups here. My number 2 would be a simple chicken noodle soup. A chicken noodle soup, you know, nothing better when you've got a cold, right? Mom used to make chicken noodle. Your number 2?
I do associate that with being sick. You know, and maybe for that reason
it didn't make it.
Didn't make my list. But I like a good kale soup. Let's, you know.
Kale soup. That's right. I didn't put that on my list here. My number 1 was your, I think, number 3 or 4, clam chowder. That is my favorite. I mean, there are a number of local restaurants that make a great one.
Do you go to the Chowder Fest?
I have been to the Chowder Fest. Yeah.
Right.
What a great. I was assigned to cover it once, and I thought, what an assignment. You know?
Yeah, right.
You're going to pay me to go eat chowder, and I don't know if you've heard. My favorite clam chowder test is, you're sitting in a restaurant. You order the clam chowder. Stick your spoon in it. If the spoon stays, you know, if it doesn't start to, then you've got a good thick clam chowder.
Well, I would say so. That's more like glue. I've never had it stand straight. I haven't tried the test. Let's just say that way.
All right.
But I don't believe it would have stood up. My number 1 is, again, a Cape Verdean thing.
Okay.
In some islands, they will call it munchup. Other islands in the archipelago would call it kachup.
Kachup?
Yes, kachupa, actually, probably. But it's very difficult to explain if you've never seen it or tasted it before, because it's a mishmash of a lot of different things. But there's a corn base in it, but it's not the regular corn,
it's not
like
corn chowder.
niblets. It's not a corn chowder, but it's a dried, crushed corn called samp.
Wow.
That's put in there. Very, very good. There's linguiça in there. Some people put some other meats in there. There's some have beef in there. Some put pig's feet, which I don't care for.
Okay, yeah.
I don't care for that. Keep your feet out of my stew.
You've given me two good ones to try
Oh,
soon. So,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right, our top 5 soups. Time for this week's Feel Good feature. And remember, if you have something, if you've heard a story or something's going on in your life that you'd like to celebrate, you can let me know about it. I'll give you the email address in just a moment. But this week's story comes from Windham, New Hampshire, where some sanitation workers recently spent 2 hours searching through 20 tons of trash looking for a woman's lost wedding ring. It was mistakenly thrown out with the garbage. The woman thought for sure the ring was gone forever, but she called the sanitation department anyway, and they told her they would keep a lookout for it. Well, the director of the sanitation department, Dennis Senibaldi, says the woman gave him some helpful information, including the day and time that her husband threw out the trash. Don't know if the husband threw out the ring, but he threw out the trash. And he was also provided with some information about, some of the other trash, things they might see. With this information, the sanitation workers were able to figure out where her trash would have gone. And then they just had to sift through roughly 12 feet of garbage to find her trash bag. And there it was. They found the diamond ring. After giving it a good cleaning, thank goodness, they returned it to an obviously very happy woman. Remember, if you have a feel-good story that you want us to broadcast and share, let me know about it. Just send an email to thepetebraleyshow@gmail.com. That's thepetebraleyshow@gmail.com. That'll do it for this episode. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. We leave you with a thought for the day, as we always do, and our thought this week comes from Joyce Meyer, who once said, "You cannot have a positive life and a negative mind." So watch those negative thoughts, all right? Try to turn them into a positive. You cannot have a positive life and a negative mind. No matter what, we hope you go out and make it a great day.